Hello there, Conquistadors. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Brandon.
And we are Table at Gaming, and we are here to talk about the Crucible of Wills, the Stoneface campaign, the Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings, and First Blood campaign pack that we've been playing and making YouTube videos of for the past few weeks. We're here to talk about it. We're here to do a retrospective, to look back upon the 4 missions that we played and, the pamphlet that we dug through, and talk about all the things that we liked and we not so liked, and I don't know what the other options are.
I think one thing is that this is a new product line for Parabellum. They've had some little narrative stuff in the past, but this is the first one they created a very descriptive story, custom models, characters, and other things. It apparently is very well received, which good. It's got cool stuff on it, and they've announced that there's one coming up between City State and Sorcerer King. So we're hoping to get feedback on what to expect if you get into this, things that we like and we hope continue in the next packet, as well as changes they might make to make the next one even better.
Yep. So I'm going to divide this into segments. First we're going to talk about the presentation. So part 1. The presentation. You did an unboxing on this, so this is not just the unboxing aspect of it, but also like the lead up to it. So let's talk about the lead up a little bit. The way that we found out about it was Miniature Market had it as a store page.
Okay, that obviously was not intended. That was what they call in the business league. There was a hangout that Parabellum did where they gave a very quick, there's going to be a campaign.
Yes.
It's going to be groundbreaking. Just wait and see. That's it. So a little minds were bubbling, got very excited.
We did. We spent weeks, months, painting Dwegum and 100K. If you've tuned into our stream, you would see that 100 Kingdoms were a thing that I painted quite frequently. I had been slowly building up an army of 100 Kingdoms, but not at any particular pace. They were just kind of I have nothing else going on, so I'm going to paint these for stream. So kick that into overdrive. Literally over 100, 200, close to 200 models maybe,
yep,
in a 2.5 month span of various Dwegum and 100 Kingdoms models, just to get ready for this campaign.
Exactly. And the items that were released as contents in this package it was the lore campaign pack, Crucible of Wills, Stoneface campaign, cementing that the Crucible of Wills is a new series of products. It has lists of products as one campaign book, one sculpted model for Eric Schur, one Ragadosh as the second, 2 command cards, obviously corresponding to the characters, infantry stands for the characters, assembly instructions, and 2 $5 discounts, coupons for the relevant STL terrain. So they also, in a similar time, released a 100 Kingdom STL set and Dwegum. So the $5 coupon kind of draws a tight connection that this is interrelated, right? You buy this, you get coupons, you get that. So that is what we thought getting into this. Then closer to the release, because this was up on Mini Market and a few other places ahead, they mentioned it on the Hangout, and then there was a short, minute-long video.
Minute and a half with I think a marketing, or maybe, I forget. Do some research. Isaac, put some text across the screen right here that says what this person's role was. I think it's marketing, like director or someone in the marketing department. But yeah, minute long.
Very broad description of it's a campaign, it's these factions, it's these characters. It's
nothing that we've ever seen.
It's
breaking ground, legendary.
And we knew a little bit about Eric Schur. He's showed up in the lore. They actually did change some of the art and stuff to reflect up, which was good. So we had some ideas. So we focused on Steel Legion because we knew Eric Schur from the fluff on the web previous that he was attached to this unit. He had ties to this unit. So we did an unboxing, so I don't want to recover that. Go and check our playlist. But inside was the 2 models, and as I said in there, I think a lot of people are going to like them and use them as proxies for what the main unit is in the base game. They're very good. And then there was the book. The book is exactly what you thought it would be. It's pretty nice paper. It's got some color, it's got some pictures, it's got the mission, it's got some lore. The thing that took me off a little bit about this is I thought this would be the size of like the rule book from the base game, or something akin to, this is a 9th Ed 40K campaign book that came out a few years ago, but this is a kind of what I expected, which is it meant for gameplay, flat binder. It's has the ring binder so you can lay it flat. It has the ability to hold the book open. In a very easy way, this is something that if you have to only play from the book, this is just a lot better on the table. I think one thing that was surprising about this is this was very hard to flip back and forth, and none of the profiles were in other areas. But while going through this, we found out that there was a lot more than just the 2 characters and the missions that were expected. There was a series of special units, storied regiments, which we'll talk about in content, that are used in various missions and help build a narrative, and it has special rules. None of these units were talked about on the lead up. None of these were mentioned in the store listing. And if you bought this and were expecting to open it up with a friend and start playing, if you didn't have an Iron Drake to represent the special unit that's connected to that, you would have to either proxy or you would have to go buy, build, and paint another item.
Which, fun fact, at the time that we actually received the campaign, after I had worked on a bunch of models for, I think, a month between like the announcement and actually getting it in our hands, maybe more than a month, I had painted exactly 1 storied regiment.
Yes.
And so I had to kick it into overdrive, and if you look back at our videos, we do proxy militia for the River Wardens, storied regiment. And again, we'll talk about those more in a later segment. We just want to get through like the build up and the like unboxing level.
Exactly. And we'll talk more about some of the specifics when we get to stored regiments, but these are the type of things that would be great to know in the store listing to do as lead up. Like if in the video it talked about some of these units, it's better set expectations with customers on what they need to get the most out of this product.
You could do something like once a week in the lead up, have an article talking about one of the storied regiments that's going to be there, and you could do fun stuff like include conversion guides, because the Blades of Providence is a storied regiment. We'll get deeper into them, but they are Steel Legion, but they have a cool feature in their fluff that they wear black armor. Well, I obviously didn't paint my Blades of Providence, well, my Steel Legion with black armor. I was following the more conventional color scheme. But if I had known in the lead up, I love narrative stuff, I would have eaten that up. I would have gone out and painted and converted units to represent these if I knew that they existed.
Yep, and as a parallel for another game that does this, I think Games Workshop with their Horus Heresy line, they release every so often exemplary units, and as part of this, it is they are free, and obviously Parabellum and GW have different budgets, so I don't want to say this should always be free, but they do include a little lore. They include usually two sets of different people contribute models. So like I play Iron Warriors, the Iron Dominators have 2 different takes on what an Iron Dominator could look like, be converted from, and painted as full color in the articles, and then a mission to kind of back that up. I think having a little bit, whether it's in the book or as in lead up to get people excited, knowing a little bit about what these units are and some of the things that make them unique is one way to get people excited, to get people to buy and build stuff ahead of time so when the product comes out, they're ready for it, and better set expectation with customers.
Yep, and speaking of buying and building stuff ahead of time, that brings us to the terrain vouchers. I'm just going to talk about that real quick. Because we wanted to use the terrain for the campaign pack, and we wanted to actually like make videos as soon as possible, get content out there, we were unable to use those vouchers because we had to buy the campaign packs or the STL packs ahead of time so that we could have them printed and painted for when it released, because we were expecting, we get the box, we paint Ragadosh and we paint Eric Schur, we get to play in and we get to having fun with it. It did not turn out exactly like that. And also, we do not get the benefit of the STL codes because those did not come out until actually physically in the book, which I think is something that they could improve on in the future. I think that if you get the book in the future, they could send out the STLs as part of like
It could have
that
been
purchase.
a pre-order bonus so people
Yeah.
could. And obviously, we're content creators.
Package deal.
Yeah, if you bought it all together,
Yes.
yeah, that would have been a great way to do it. And like we're content creators, so time is of the essence to get these videos out there. So we know that our want to get this quick isn't the equal to everyone, but there's a lot of lead up time, and people are very excited for this product because it was the first real narrative product with real characters instead of just generic rules that have come out. And this is a nice way to keep and capture that excitement and give people things to build towards until the product comes out. Yep. And I would like to take a little bit to talk about the terrain as part of the presentation, which is
Okay.
They were connected because it was on the storefront page, and there was a strong line between the terrain because of the coupons and what's in the book. And I feel that they weren't. It wasn't explicitly said you needed them, but a lot of the marketing had both of them together, the inclusion. And I think that they could have been integrated better. When we get to the content and the missions, I'll explain. But it's one of those things that either they should separate them or they should bring them a lot closer, and that would be better. Such as it would be good if the missions had more prescriptive layouts of you should print this thing to represent the battlefield. And that really wasn't there, but it kind of connotates it because they actually list the STL coupons like you should buy them together. So presentation and lead-up wise, that part was just a little confusing to me.
Yep. So that brings us on to content. And this is good. A little bit of this is going to overlap with the unboxing, but this is, I think, looking back on it rather than the first thoughts. So model quality. We have your reaction to opening them up and looking at them at first glance. You built them. I painted them. Let's talk about that. The models are I think, integral, the marquee content item in this. Like, it's called a campaign pack, but most of the value, I think, is coming from the models. So what do you think about building and cleaning them?
Okay, first I'll say I agree with you, because even if you love this mission more than anything, I don't see people playing this mission more than once or twice, right? Just because you play the series of games, you understand. The models, I think, are things people are going to buy this pack and use for a long, long time. There's a low amount of flash. The detail was crisp, and they were very easy to put together. I thought they looked like what they were supposed to, and obviously that it feels like an obvious statement, but Stone Vase King had the marks that tied into lore and other things. He looked like an imposing figure with his robe and everything. Looked great. I liked how Eric Schur had the pigs on the pig skin on his back. I thought it really set him apart from the normal model, and I think that they were top notch. And I think if you bought this and just used those, if you had like a Dweg and a 100 Kingdom army or a friend with one of the others and you split this, I think you would still get a lot of value, especially when you look at the cost of the models. So I built them. You painted them. So how did you like painting them?
I think they painted up very good. They were nice, easy color schemes to go with. I didn't paint exactly box art style, but I didn't come across anything where I was like, wow, I really wish they hadn't done that. Or I didn't think that they were overly detailed or underly detailed. I don't think that, they were very good models. And I'd also like to just talk about like the general character design. I don't have as much of a connection to Ragadosh himself, but Eric Schur, his lore describes him as basically like a skinny orphan, malnourished kid who, once he got into a position in life that he could afford to, he ate and drank as much as he could to like gain size again. So he looks like a scrawny, pot-bellied dude in kind of oversized armor. And at first, I like the old art that they had of Eric Schur. I think it matched the personality that the lore had like built up to him quite a bit. Like, he was a pretty serious, no-nonsense military officer. Like, he looked at that. But like, seeing the new design, it grew on me. At first, I was like, oh, that face is ugly. Like, I don't like It grew on me. I ended up really liking it a lot. So character design, top-notch. Ragadosh, he looks cool, but I don't really have a super connection to anything he's got going on.
Yeah, and exactly like you said, I think one thing, and GW is just the biggest one so that we compare it to them. One of the big complaints with a lot of GW current character models is they're so over-designed that it takes away from the visual. It's too much so your eyes don't stick on the model, and it makes it horrendous to try to approach because there's just too much there. I think these models hit the perfect balance. There's enough detail there to sell the character and what they are with little details to lead into the lore. but it's not so much that it's impossible to paint. So, yeah.
So that brings us on to the next category of content. The storied regiments. We've talked about them before. What are storied regiments? Well, they basically took a unit that exists in the game. They gave it a name. They made it a unique character. So, like, example that we've used, Blades of Providence.
Yep.
They are Steel Legion. They wear black armor. They have more attacks. They have 7 attacks base. They come with a drill master. Well, 6 attacks base, and they come with a drill master officer included in their cost, which brings them up to 7 attacks each. You can't buy them like any other upgrades, like veterans or anything. Like, they come pre-customized because they represent a specific regiment. And yeah, they're expected to be used in certain missions. So Blades of Providence are in the first and the last mission. River Wardens, second mission. Hangman's Due, third mission. And then the fourth mission is all of them. And then the Dwegum have their own.
Yes.
I think storied regiments are an insanely cool idea. I wish we knew about them ahead of time.
I actually think they're probably the coolest part. Like, the models and stuff, great.
Yeah.
Don't get me. The most innovative thing about this is the story regiments, because not a lot of campaigns do things where they take a model, an existing unit, and make some changes.
Yeah.
What most campaign systems do is create overly complex systems where you kill and do things to get incremental upgrades over the course of a campaign that either have to be balanced so poor, like so unpowerful that they're not exciting, or so powerful that they break the game. This is a much better system, which is they represent a specific unit. There's specific lore about it, and they have stats that are a little different than normal, so they mix up how you play the game, and they are kind of suited for the mission they're played against. I think that's really cool. I think it helps sell the narrative a lot more than just you have a special commander and a special commander on the other side.
Yep. And then that brings us to the, I guess, final kind of content that we're going to talk about in this section, which is the relics. Which, if you looked at if you watched our previous videos, you'll know that the relics didn't come up that much. They have 2 relics per army. Mm-hmm. And at first read, I thought that whoever won the first mission got to pick one of their relics and then carry that throughout the campaign, which is a cool idea. It turns out, no matter what, after you play the first mission, both players get access to both relics for the rest of the campaign, which is a kind of a little bit of a what's going on here. And then, do you want to talk about what the Dwegum relic? I sort of used the one relic where it's the regiment that the holder is attached to cannot be broken. I sort of used that when Eric Schur joined the Hangman's Due, because guess what? Blades of Providence come with that ability naturally. So when you use them, like, Eric Schur doesn't actually want to join the Blades of Providence because he's going to take the banner, or you're taking another character with that banner, which at that point, like, I brought a chapter mage. They don't have good units to use that banner with. And then the other one helped with duels, which never came up at all in the entire campaign.
Yeah. Hot take, if you watch any of our hot take videos, we don't love duels.
Yeah.
And so the Dwegum ones, the Dragon Silver Amulet makes you better at dueling and makes you auto-break characters, the enemy unit if they're refused. But when we get to what the Blades of Providence do, so I'll say it now, they don't get broken.
Yeah,
so,
they can't be broken at all.
So there's just one unit and 2 missions that this bounces off of. And then the second one is Dragon Handler's Baton, which is characters that have it that are attached to a Drake get an extra free march move. The problem is we own 1 Iron Drake, and that Iron Drake we use for the special storied regiment, which explicitly can't have characters attached. So that doesn't work, so we'd have to buy a second one. And you could, in theory, have like the Hellbringer Drake, but what's the bonus that it gives? It gets an extra move.
An additional march, which actually that would be very good.
That would be good. We don't have the model. We would have
we would have to buy a Hellbringer Sorcerer because we did not know ahead of time what the contents of this campaign were going to be enough to like prepare to actually do the campaign. So the alternative was we stretch it out over 6 months as we slowly acquire stuff, which is how to your point earlier, that's how the average person is probably going to engage with this.
Yeah, but still, I think some advocacy on kind of stuff you have or more generic items would be good. Just once again, I don't think there's a lot of Dweg players who have 2 Iron Drakes or want 2 Iron Drakes. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But most players, I think, will have one. They'll use it for the storied regiment, and then they won't have the use from this. So I just think either let people know what they probably ought to have, make this artifacts better work with storied regiments, or have artifacts that don't require specific units as types.
Yep. So before we go into part 3, I want to go... Yeah. This is kind of a running issue with a lot of the content in the book between the characters and the missions and the storied regiments. There is a lot of gameplay-related typos in this book to the point where I don't know what's accurate or not. As an example, both of the characters are March 5. All of their regiments, except for the Fireforged storied regiment, are March 6, which means that they're slowing down. But also, that means that all of those regiments are one march higher than their native regiment.
I think that's the important thing. Like when you look at Steel Legion,
they're March 5.
But Swords of Providence are 6. And when you read the textual lore, there doesn't seem to be a reason for that. It's unclear if move 6 is intentional or is a typo.
Yeah. And then partnered with something like all of these regiments say that they can be both, and the characters say that they can be used in both Last Argument of Kings and First Blood. That's patently untrue. You look at the characters, and they don't have command abilities. It would be very hard to translate a character into First Blood.
Correct. And textually, when we get to the mission, the characters do not have a place in First Blood.
Correct.
So that's not really a concern, because they textually are not supposed to be there.
Correct.
But when you look at other things like the Blades of Providence, there's one profile that is listed for use with both Conquest and First Blood. And as you know, First Blood represents one unit, one guy, and a stand for Conquest is a group of them. So when you have the same number of attacks for one model versus a stand of models, same thing with hit points and other things, it's drastically overpowered in First Blood.
So I'm going to use the Blades of Providence as the example here. I'm going to pull up the Steel Legion stat line, and I'm going to take a look at it. So in First Blood, a Steel Legion has 1 attack per model and 2 wounds per model. In Last Argument of Kings and First Blood, according to this pamphlet, the Blades of Providence, if you use this stat line in First Blood, they would have 6 attacks per model and per stand, because they only have 1 stat line, and 5 wounds per model. And per stand, because they only have 1 stat line. So it's patently untrue that these are valid for Last Argument of Kings and First Blood. But
it feels like there should have been more editing on this, because it is confusing. And there's even the 2 profiles. Each of the factions have one storied regiment that has 2 profiles, one for Conquest and one for for First Blood. And even there is editing mistakes on the First Blood unit. The
River Wardens represent Imperial Rangers, another 2 wound, 1 attack regiment. They have 4 barrage in Last Argument of Kings per stand, 2 barrage per model in First Blood. That makes sense. However, in First Blood, they have 4 attacks per stand, or per model, and 4 wounds per model. And so you take a unit of 12 of them for 120 points. That's how much an actual unit of Imperial Ranger Corps cost. And you have literally 4 times the attacks and wounds. It's a 48 wound model or unit for the same price. Clearly a typo, but we don't know what is actually supposed to be. Are they supposed to have 4 Clash 1 attacks to represent that they're dual wielding or some cool thing like that? Or should they have 1 and 1? And
this is exasperated by the Bloodbound, which is the unit for the Dwegem, which is their attack value isn't changed from Conquest, and they're a melee forward unit. So the fact that they have a bazillion attacks with high clash and high additional skills mean that they absolutely murdered. And if you watch the Mission 2 First Blood mission, you will see that happen in practice, where most of my stuff wasn't doing well, and then this unit went and just killed everything.
And took no damage in return. Because they're 5 wounds a model in a 12 model unit.
60, yeah.
That's 60 wounds with
Yeah.
defense 3, shield, and hardened. The Ironclad Drake says both First Blood. Just one last example. We are driving this into the dirt, but I think this is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like the fact that these rules are technically unplayable and it's 1/4 of the missions here. An Ironclad Drake in First Blood is 430 points. And in this, it's 220 points for Last Argument of King and First Blood.
Yeah.
There's no real way to translate that.
Yeah.
And the rules and stats are also all different. So
So just to hope for the next one, more time spent on editing and making sure everything's very tight,
Yes.
very clear, saying what the profile could be used in if it's Conquest or First Blood. If it's First Blood, really make sure the stats reflect what it should be, because if we go here and try to fix it ourselves, at that point we're kind of writing our own unit and we don't know the intent, which is what we like about this. And then I know we covered this in presentation, but have some of the pictures in the book be of these interesting models. Give us a picture of the black armored of Providence. Get me excited for them. I think that the blurbs that they have here is a good start, and I hope to see more of this in the next product.
let's talk about the missions. Mission 1, fairly straightforward, right?
So, yeah, and I know I covered this a little bit when we talked about terrains. I think one thing that I expected was with the terrain that there would be more prescriptive layouts.
Yes.
Where they would say, you need 5 big buildings, or lay them out in this, or print 8 of these. And I also thought that because there was 4 missions and 2 terrain packs, that one for each package that you got a coupon when you bought this, it felt to me that there was going to be equal Dweg and 100 Kingdom. And that wasn't the case. One mission was one mission was Dweg. And
it recommended using Dwegum terrain.
Correct. And it doesn't give first,
theme.
it just says, hey, you can use Dweg terrain for this. And the rest were 100 Kingdom. So if I was on a limited budget or had limited time, 100 Kingdom is by far the better buy for this. And I felt like just with some very simple retheming, they could have done 50-50, which would have made the purchasing of the 2 STLs and printing and painting 2 tables feel a little better for someone who's really into it. And I do think people are really into it because people got very excited about the terrain packs in connection with this. So I think you can do some mission design to make both sides represented equally.
Yep. And then just to reiterate a point again, it would have been nice to know that the Dwegum terrain was only used in 1 mission and the rest were 100 Kingdoms, because we focused on the Dwegum terrain first and then had some 100 Kingdoms terrain.
Correct.
And we kind of rushed it and...
Because it's called the Stoneface.
Have it ready.
The Stoneface King. We thought it was about our boy Ragadosh.
We thought it was about our boy Ragadosh. We'll get into that more in a later part. Let's talk about the missions right now.
Correct. Yeah.
All 3 of the missions, just general thing. All 3 of the Last Argument of King missions stand in circles.
Yep.
Whether or not that really seems to make sense. Mission number 1, Eric Schur is raiding supply depots. And I can see the connection between standing in a circle and raiding a supply depot.
Correct. Yep.
I can see that. I also think that objective markers is equally, if not more, valid. Because you're actually destroying supplies in that sense.
Correct, yeah. To do the broad statement, which is the latest mission pack kind of offered a few different ways to score missions and interact with the game. One being objective zones and another being objective markers. And for a mission where you attack things there or blow up supply depots or other things, which we'll get to later, there was no missions that had marker, and that felt like a cool thing to put one in the STL, print out a Dwegum specific or a 100 Kingdom specific marker, or second, as a way to mix up the missions instead of just holding objectives, but having to do damage to this thing that the other side wants to keep alive.
All 4 missions involve destroying things that the other player wants to keep alive, but only 2 of them do that in such a way where you actually damage those, attack those things anyway. Anyways, Mission 1, there's actually not a lot to talk about. It opens up the campaign. It's 7 to 1,200 points of Last Argument of Kings. It's pretty small.
Yep.
They have some special rules where to represent Eric Schur getting the initiative on the Dwegum, he does a surprise attack on their supply depots, so they don't get to roll for reinforcements turn 1. We actually misplayed this in our run because we interpreted that as they don't get reinforcements at all. That's the third mission, it turns out. The first mission, they don't roll for it, but they still get their automatic. So, like, he could have come on with, like, Ballisti or Hold Inferno Automata, but we didn't play that way. But I don't think it's a standing in circles mission.
It's a set of missions. It's standard scoring. It's nothing crazy.
So mission 2 is the First Blood mission. So the first thing that I'm going to say, reiterate again, we had no idea that one of the missions were going to be First Blood. And I actually, as people who generally don't have interest in First Blood, it detracts from it a lot, having 25% of the campaign be something that you're only begrudgingly going to play.
I understand that Parabellum wants to support both products, but I feel if you're a First Blood player, this is going to leave you disappointed because 3 of the missions aren't what you want. If you're a Conquest only, and I use Conquest as a shorthand for Conquest, Argument of the Last King. If you're a Conquest player, you're going to have one mission that you might not be set up to play. It feels like they should have a little bit more of a split, maybe 3 Conquest, 3 First Blood if they want to mix both, or just be very explicit with what you get, because that is a little weird tonal difference.
Yep. That being said, the mission was kind of interesting. The Dwegam army was marching across a big bridge, and the 100 Kingdoms were trying to plant bombs on the bridge to blow it up to stop the Dwegam from crossing it, and like actively like kill people that are Dwegam people.
Yes.
Marching across the bridge,
Sure.
actively like kill them and stop them from further crossing. That's a cool guerrilla mission. The leaders aren't there
Because they're marching across the bridge or setting up or something.
at home.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird because, again, like these characters are sold as like a big thing in the campaign, but they're not there for 1/4 of it, which is odd, but I sort of understand thematically why they wouldn't want to do it, and
I think it makes
not
sense.
printing First Blood rules saves them pages.
And also
I
a
don't
lot
know
of
if they were.
balance for one mission.
Yeah.
So the one thing that is, I think it makes sense if you have a campaign, if the big missions where the characters are fighting are Conquest, and the side missions or setting or the Vanguard units is First Blood. I think I'm going to bring it back to Horus Heresy. It is always weird to me when we go to events to play 30K, and we have a 15 or 2,000 point game of random schlubs in the middle of nowhere, and Corvus the Primarch shows up, or this very special character, because they wouldn't. They have more important things to do. And I think the one thing that's good about this is it makes sense for them not to do. This is a scouting mission. But it feels like there should be 4 big missions and then maybe 2 or 3 scouting missions that maybe have tangential influence on the main campaign or something. I think there's a world where if you are someone who is very optimized focused, if you're 100 Kingdom, you can probably just win this, I think, on round 1 or 2. If you just go very wide and just like put a big fast unit so you can't touch the thing and just place the model and then just wait till they end around, boom, blows things up. And I also think if you're also super optimizing on the Dwegam player, that you can probably just go wide with very cheap units if you have it, and then try to do the opposite where you just... So I want to say that I love this mission because it is probably the most interesting mission of the entire things.
Yes.
I think it perfectly represents the theme, which is there's 4 objectives. You have to place a special bomb to blow them up.
6 objectives.
6 objectives, you're right.
Yes.
I think that was very unique, and I thought the layout of the board was pretty good.
Yeah, and actually on that point, it is very interesting because it does use objective markers on its face, but it also does an interesting thing. You're not just literally attacking them. You have to place tokens on them, and then the enemy... So the Dwegam are defending it, but the 100 Kingdoms don't actually attack at any point. They just place tokens when they perform clash actions against it. And then the Dwegam actually have to attack those tokens off. But then it is weird because we couldn't figure out, this is one of those things where there was a typo. We couldn't figure out what happened with the tokens when they got pulled off, because it seems like narratively what they were attempting to say
is they would blow up, but who and when?
So the rule is when a Dwegam model selects an objective marker as the target of a clash action, if it has inflicted any amount of successful hits, it may remove a single explosive marker from the target objective zone. At the end of that model's next activation, all models within 2 inches of the model carrying the explosive marker suffer 1 hit with the Smite special rule. So
what it sound so like it. This is rules as intended versus written. So I think this is the hard part. It feels like what should happen is Isaac goes up, River Wardens place a bomb. Whole Ballista go up, make their attack. Luckily, they get an attack. The bomb goes from the marker onto the Ballista guy. And then next turn, I have one turn of movement to run him away for everything where he explodes and he probably dies. It feels like they were sort of going there, but it doesn't say the bomb. There's
like the token transfers to the Ballista.
There's no textual evidence that the Dwagon player can ever hold a bomb, or if you attack it, they hold the bomb. And I think that was very confusing, so we just didn't engage with that. So, once again, I think this is a very interesting mission. I think that's thematically cool. It's just on the next time around, having another editor pass or maybe some external players play this and give some of the feedback to help clean that up, I think would have been very helpful.
Yeah. And then just to go back on the note of 100 Kingdoms can zerg it, 4 of the objective markers start 6 inches away from the 100 Kingdoms deployment zone, which means that you can run up and tag them with explosive markers almost instantly. I mean, the new chart, like, this would have been terrible with the old charge rules where it would be move plus D6 because you'd, like, guarantee make it every time. Yeah. Now, at least movement 5 units can't make it. But if you just bring a bunch of unit movement 6 guys, including the River Wardens, who have 4 wounds, so they're going to stick around and carry those tokens, like, you just have a bunch of, like, the fast archer guys run up, plant bombs, Dwagam are going to have to peel it off, which it's very hard for them to do so.
Because they have to.
Because they actually have to score hits.
They have to score hits, and they're also slower units.
They're also slower, where they also start 6 inches away, but like, what besides Inferno Automata has March 6? Oh, the Bloodbound, because they have move 6 like every other storied regiment.
So they are the one, so they can get one off pretty much.
So they can block one, yeah.
But that's the thing is that if the 100 Kingdoms blow up 4, they win. So if they play optimized, they can take, I think, 3 out safely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
on turn 1.
On turn 1, which then it's...
And then they just need to blow... In order to win the mission, you only need to blow 4 of the 6 up, which is more than 50%, but it's like almost trivial to bomb it out.
If you zerg in the beginning.
If you have activation advantage, but that's talking about optimization stuff. So I'm going to move on to mission 3.
Yeah, 100%.
We're back to Last Argument of Kings. We have a mission where there is a garrison that starts with 4 stands of mercenary crossbowmen. 100 Kingdoms need to protect that at all costs. There's also 2 circles to stand in for whatever reason. So standing in the circles ultimately doesn't matter because in order to win, you need more victory points, and in order for the Dwegam to win, they also need to have destroyed the Toll House. But destroying the Toll House, which in order to destroy it, you kill the unit within, and that counts as destroying the Toll House for the mission objective. You gain a bunch of points for doing that to the point where it's like, pretty sure you statistically are likely, if you've gotten to the point of destroying the Toll House, you've basically won on score alone.
Assuming the Dwagon and 100 Kingdom are playing neck and neck, and the 100K is so ahead, once you do that, you're so far ahead, and you've unlocked the victory.
Yep, and then it's just one of those ones where, like, what is standing in the circle? Okay. What is weird to me... Oh, it's also long or short edge deployment, so there's a big distance between the two.
Yeah.
What's weird to me is that the force stands... Like, it's intended that the Throne of Enagalash, that's the storied regiment for this one, he gets, like, flurry against garrisoned units. He's intended to, like, walk up and smash it, but A, he's heavy, and B... You can just take Fireforged and shoot it from 14 inches away with AP2 attacks, which is exactly what you did, and like throw fireballs at it with Hellbringer Sorcerers or with Tempered Sorcerers, and you just annihilate the defense 1 plus 2 from the garrison mercenary crossbowmen, and there's like, they can't leave. The only thing that they can do up there is aim and shoot, and they do get an increased range for it, but... Yeah, I shot at your guys. You all have defense 2 at least plus shield from the front. I have AP 1. Yeah. You walk up with higher AP. You negate the garrison bonus. I'm rolling 1s. I'm looking for 1s. Like, as soon as you started dedicating any attacks to it, that garrison died. It was
It
just
died
not
really
strong enough.
Yeah, and once again, feel free to watch our Let's Play. Everything's up there so you can see this. I did not expect to kill them when I did this because I thought I was going to wound them a little bit for the Iron Drake or the special unit. It would have been cool if they were a little stronger, had more wounds, or it was a special building so they got 2 defense or something like that.
Yeah.
Isaac, I think.
They did get 2 defense.
Oh, they did.
Right, it's just Dwegem are known for having
they
high
have high
AP.
on their shots. Yeah.
So, like, your Fireforged were doing AP, high AP, and then your Tempered Sorcerer was also throwing -2 AP attack. So, like, yes, I was still Defense 1, but I was only still Defense 1.
Yeah. No, you're
like,
right.
if... I think it would have even been better if the garrison just gave you Evasion 2.
That's actually the solve.
Because like then you could at least stick around
1 out of 5 or whatever.
And
or 1 out of 3. I agree with that. So in concept, like the mission, that there is a guardhouse holding the line, that the Dwegem have to go displace them. It did give an opportunity to use the 100 Kingdom STL to build a big tower that you could put.
That was fun.
In. That was cool. But yeah, the tangential stand-in circles like textually didn't seem to match what we were trying to do there. It wasn't like they were wells or other important buildings, or it felt like...
Yeah, I ended up placing other 100 Kingdoms buildings there. It's one to represent an armory and one just like as a house. And so like it kind of made sense.
Yeah. But it would have been cool if there was like...
some kind of explanation about what those circles represented. Correct.
It's another example where having an
more
objective
lore.
Marker would have been cool. Like, this is their armory and you're thrashing it, or this is something and you're going to break it and destroy stuff or something. And so we don't think every mission should have an objective. None of these except First Blood did. We think that some of these could have had it to mix things up and represent interesting things.
So that brings us to mission 4, the final mission. This one is a bit of a doozy from all rounds. This one is 2,000 to 2,500 points. They even recommend up to 2,800 points. It was a drag to actually play through. We played at about 2,300 points. And I'm going to let you talk about the mission objectives because you have a lot to say both about the objective itself and about Objective 3.
Yes, okay, so there's a few things. I'm going to bring this book here, and Isaac afterwards, please superimpose, but don't reveal anything more than we need to.
Yeah.
This mission was very challenging because I could see what they were trying to do, but I didn't know how to play any of it because it wasn't edited well. So the first thing is there's 5 objectives spread out. 1, 2, 1 in the middle, and then 2 on the left. So 2 on the left side, 2 on the right side, 1 smack dab in the middle. They were numbered.
And, I'm just going to clarify. You're about to say it, but I'm going to clarify what you just said.
Yeah.
And are about to say again. They are 1, 2, no number, 3, and 4 across the battlefield. So the dead center one has no number.
And so just to clarify, and that felt intentional because of some other rules, which I'll get to. But when we look at the victories, players gain an additional 1 point if they seize the objective zone 3. If we look at the graph, 3 is the one that is slightly to the right, which there is a matching one on the left.
It's closer to the 100 Kingdom players' deployment zone.
It feels like
it's not the center one.
That's the thing. It felt like there was an addition of this or an edit of this where it was numbered and it was 3, and they meant middle because that's like textually the only way that really makes sense. And then there's additional because they have another victory point condition is players gain an additional 2 points if they're seizing 2 objectives, not including the center one. So it feels like the mission is scoring. You get the side ones, you score for objectives, you score additional if you have 2 of the side ones, and then you score additional extra 1 if you have the center one. But that's not how the numbers and things and the graph lay out, which feels like an editor. So we just...
Basically, as it, like, if this mission, and this is going to sound harsh, if this mission had been played a single time before it was released into the wild... that would have been caught.
Correct. Played with by looking at the rules. Because I felt like someone's like, I don't need to read the rules because I know what it is. So just the middle one, right? If you looked at the graph,
If you played the rules and like read them, like you would know that this is wrong and either actually I'll get to what I'm about to say later because this is an important point and I should have brought it up earlier, but I'm going to use it to wrap things up. But let's keep talking about the objectives.
These are the big victories. So there's a special scenario rule, and this what I'm going to explain is going to go nuts because Isaac and I had a breakdown trying to read this. So there's this. So the lore of this rule is the Dwegem are assaulting the Hundred Kingdom facility, like their village, and Ericshire rallies his troop and runs out to meet them in battle. The reason I bring this up is the rules don't necessitate that. There's a hidden phase where, in the beginning, the supremacy phase, each player picks dice that correspond to one of the two side objectives. So 1, 2, 3, 4, actually as labeled out on the graph. So we took dice and put it under a building and then revealed it. Because of planning ahead for getting...
let's finish talking about the basic mechanic.
Okay.
Each player hides a dice.
Yes.
On a certain face, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yes.
Then, when it comes time to score points at the end of each round,
Yep.
both players reveal their dice.
Correct.
Every objective that is picked by one of the dice is worth 0 points.
Correct. So you can deny.
So you can deny. However, if both players reveal the same die face, so if both players pick 1, objective 1 is worth double points, so 2 points.
Yes, so I'm gonna stop there. That sounds amazing because there's now counterplay, but if you double down too hard, you actually might double the points. So all good right now.
So that's how we played it purely for the first 2 turns.
Yeah.
There is an addition that he's about to talk about. Read just the part that we played until we realized halfway through the game that there was another part to this. Just read the part as is, and let's talk about how we played it for the first 3 turns.
So first off, Eric gets 2 dice because I think that's important.
Yes,
because he planned ahead, which thematically does make sense.
Right, but that's the only part that.
So he gets 2 dice. Do I get 1?
Yes.
And then there's a supremacy ability that Eric has, or the Hundred Kingdom player has, which is when players secretly set aside their objective zones, the Hundred Kingdom players can pick 2. When they reveal these, the 100 player can choose to either have neither of the 2 objectives score victory points or to have both award double the amount of points until the end of the victory phase. This is considered to always be active. Now, this is where it gets very hard. So if Brannon picks 1 and Isaac picks 1 and 3, and he says that there's 0, does 1, since it has 2 dice on it, count as double scoring as per the first conditional? Does it count as 0 because the planning ahead supremacy says he can change how it counts? If he selects both that I haven't selected any, can he double them anyway? So this second interaction makes this rule very hard.
Yeah.
So the way we played it is if the only dice on a location is 100 kingdoms, that the 100 Kingdom player, Eric Schur, Isaac, can choose to either count 0 or count double. If the Dwegem and 100 Kingdom dice are on one location, regardless of what the 100 Kingdom player picks, it falls through to the base objective mission, which is if 2 dice are on an objective, it double scores. Now, I don't know if that's the right way to play.
I think that is mostly correct. It's just if Eric Schur chose to have it score 0, I think it would score 0, and then 2 dice on it would double the 0.
Because you double for 4 times. That's the unclear part. Because that's why we
did not do that.
Couldn't do that because it felt you were already racking up points way higher. Because as you can see, it is very easy for Eric to just pick his 2 locations on his side of the table and ours double. Because if I play a dice to try to counter, well, his dice is there and it counts as double. If I don't put a dice there, he's going to say, my dice count is doubling. So it is a very uninteractive map for the Dwegem, except you have to kill people off the objective. And I like I like the original where each of you get to pick a dice and deny. But if you deny the one that everyone expects, that you end up in doubling, that's a really cool mechanic. Yeah. The second condition makes it very complicated and super gives the 100 Kingdoms a lot of play, which thematically doesn't make sense because they're rushing out.
That's a good time to segue into the campaign, the narrative, the story. Because I think that's where you're about to talk about.
That's exactly.
The story, the narrative, the campaign itself. Let's start by talking about the ludonarrative dissonance. There is a hard time matching what the fluff describes to the rules. So the first mission, as I said, you're raiding supply houses. It's standing in circles. I see how you could represent raiding a supply house by standing in a circle as opposed to destroying an objective marker.
And I like this one. The rule, the thing is Eric sees that the Dweghom are amassing piles of supplies at the border, and he's like, I gotta go stop it. And the way thematically we were doing that is you stand in a circle, and we can use our imagination that the 100 Kingdom players are just smashing my spears, destroying my corals,
carrying it off,
carting
in horse carts.
Yeah, so fine,
makes sense. Mission 2, planting bombs on the tower or on the pillars. Thematic, fun. That one makes sense as well.
The consequence for it, though, I don't think makes sense.
I want to talk about the consequences as a separate thing.
Okay.
Mission 3, destroying the toll house. That one also works. Standing in the circles is strange.
Correct.
Standing in the circles, not clear what that represents. Killing the people in the tower, 100% makes sense.
It feels like they should have doubled down on it. Like, I'm gonna be brazen. Have 3 towers, man. Go buck wild. Make it so the Dweghom have to kill a lot of things, and that gives it a lot of times 100 Kingdoms to push up and reinforce. Go double down on this. I love...
Have the 100 Kingdoms start on the field.
Exactly.
Because, like, one of the things is the Dweghom, this one, they don't get to come in at all. Because it represents the... on turn 1, this represents the 100 Kingdoms player having times to ready up a defense. But also, that's only allowing them to bring light units in early. Like, you only get the advantage of a couple other light units, like, building up barricades or whatever. Like, have it so, like, the 100 Kingdoms can, like, just start up straight up, like, have their units deploy 6 inches past the board edge instead of, like, the board edge itself for the entire mission, just to represent that this is their supply line. Like, they are there. That might be too strong, but also, like, it's super narrative, and if you're going to have just one tower, super easy to destroy because it's just mercenary crossbowmen, like, that makes it a little harder because it's harder to keep units in range with 100 Kingdoms coming straight at you from that much closer.
And I'll say, the narrative missions that are the best are the ones that push boundaries on unique and potentially sort of unfair. Obviously, you want everyone to win, but something that's a little more powerful, or something that takes a little bit longer to play because you're not bound by a 2-hour round time in a tournament. Like, you have a lot more control, and the goal is you're going to be playing longer. So it's a fun time to take chances. The Holiday First Blood mission was really fun, where you're fighting and you're pulling the packages one direction or the other direction. That's a really unique mechanic that wouldn't work in a tournament. Like, I like when they take chances here. Like, the second mission was First Blood was really cool because they did something different.
Despite being First Blood.
Correct. Yeah.
But fourth mission, I think, is the one that, like, really puts me over the edge. It describes the lore of this battle being the Dweghom are actively sieging. They have Hellbringer Drakes and Fire Sorcerers, like, bombarding the walls. Eric sure knows that the walls aren't going to stand up much longer, so he sallies forth to try to destroy the Hellbringer Drakes and Fire Sorcerers, which is represented not by actual Hellbringer Drakes or Fire Sorcerers. It's not represented by objective markers. It's represented by standing in circles.
Textually, it says Eric is briefed on the deathly powers of these eldritch engines, so Eric understands the danger. Before that, it says that these ultra-concentrated infernos of barrage by harnessing the fiery energies of several Hellbringer sorcerers, right? Like, these are actual units that are doing things, and Eric's
capital letters, proper nouns.
And Eric's like, we can't let that stand.
Charges out, and then they have, like, the weird dice game. But what does that, like, why does Eric Schur have the potential to make killing or protecting that Hellbringer Drake less valuable than this Hellbringer Drake? Why does he have an advantage in which Hellbringer Drakes are more victory worthy? Correct. Like, what does that dice mechanic actually represent? Like, standing in circles to represent killing a Hellbringer Drake is, like, one kind of ludonarrative break for me. But, like, this dice game mechanic, like, I cannot translate that to any sort of narrative in this mission at all. And it almost feels like the rules for this mission were written completely independently of the fluff, which is not really what you want to see.
Correct.
For a narrative campaign.
Especially the first three, there is very tight. Like
it's like I wouldn't like. There's I think that they're loose. Like the second one is the tightest.
100%.
The first one's very arguable. Like I keep saying, I can see where you would come from
it's
to say
slow mission. It's a low point mission. It's to get people into it. I think you have to start easier with less
just
mechanics
standing in
and ramp
circles.
up. So that's why I don't think that one. The third one has the tower. You got to attack the tower.
Just
Makes
they
sense.
add the random circles just
Correct.
to give you something else to do.
I think they should have doubled down on it,
or at least given a fluff explanation of why those circles are important.
Correct. And then, like, the planning ahead ability feels weird because if, for example, if I was going to retheme this, if Ragadosh had the ability to shift his resources around,
yes,
protect his guys, if he was the one in control of which units, which objectives were worth double or no points, it would make sense because as he's doing the attack, he's shifting the siege equipment or the sorcerers, or they're powering up different areas to do the attack. It feels very weird. Eric is the one counterattacking, and he's the one with almost entire control of the situation.
Which, not really what you have on a Sally Forth. It's an act of desperation, and it's even described as such.
Yeah. And like this would a mission that would be one thing we talked about, and I don't want to get too much into prescriptive, but like if each one of these was a objective marker, and they had hit points, and when you would like one thing we were brainstorming.
Lethal demise and aura of death to represent that these are Hellbringer Drakes and Hellbringer Sorcerers.
So there's inherent
danger. They
danger.
fight back.
And then the winning and loss condition wouldn't be just victory points. It would be a different item. There's 5 Drakes. If you kill one, you're 0 to 2. Your city's destroyed. They blow everything up.
Yeah.
If you destroy 3, you took a hit, but you're still around, and the Dweghom have to retreat. And if you destroy 4 or more, well, your city's basically untouched. The Dweghom have done nothing, and your walls have stood the test of time. And I feel like that is a way that you can still score. It's a little different than just VPs, which fit in the normal standard, and it more represents that these are like siege or sorcerers or drakes that you're actually destroying. And it's mechanically interesting and distinct from just a normal objective is because they have lethal demise or of death. So if you engage them, you take damage to represent them not going out without a fight. So we just think there's ways to represent the fluff of the attack in a more interesting way.
And talking about like the potential consequences, let's talk about the consequences between missions, like the mechanical aspect of the campaign. So mission 1, no matter what, playing mission 1 unlocks those artifacts. No matter who wins, no matter who loses, both players get artifacts, and like the 100 Kingdoms player, when you get the artifact, one of them is the crown of the first Stone King. So it sounds like you get Ragadosh's crown because he's the Stone Face King, but Stone King is actually like the position of Pravia. Yeah. So like you did good or bad, it doesn't matter. You get access to some of Pravia's best artifacts. Which, okay, whatever. I guess it makes sense that you don't want the first mission to have like long-lasting consequences. Like, one player gets a pretty powerful item, but they do cost a premium in points. They're like 30 and 40 points each for the different items that you can get. So you still have to pay for it. It's weird that you just get it no matter what. For blowing, here is, I think, one of the worst ones for me. Mm-hmm. If you win the first mission as the 100 Kingdoms, you have successfully raided the supply lines. You have stopped the Dweghom from having a bunch of resources piled up at the borders of their territory. So now it's harder for them to march into your territory. So what does that mean for mission 2? Well, you get more bombs. But I don't understand, did you steal the bombs from the Dweghom?
Yeah.
Is that what they're saying? And then what's the Dweghom bonus?
If they win.
If the Dweghom win the first one, then they get to choose who goes first or second.
Yeah.
So that one actually, for once, makes sense.
Yeah.
They protected their supply lines, so they are able to move a little quicker. They have more supplies closer. So, like, it makes sense that they would have some form of initiative in the second battle. So that's whatever. But, like, the getting extra bombs for stopping the supply lines for the Dwegum is weird. Then, if you plant the bombs successfully in Mission 2, for Mission 3, defending the Toll House, the Dwegum get angrier because their bridge was blown up while they were marching across it, so they get bonuses to charge garrison terrain and enemy regiments within objective zones, and they get +1 attack when they charge. Okay, but why?
It feels like they're trying to use some of these to like
As like a catch-up mechanic?
but they didn't do. I don't feel it thematically makes sense. So like, it does feel good in campaign systems where you get a small bump when you go forward.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you should get like a huge amount of
no, but it does.
bonus.
It feels weird. Like, for example, me winning the second game was actually better because it sets me up worse for the third game.
Yeah, it
right?
made me better for the third game.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that was like, yeah, which is
then
weird.
the final mission, if you won battles 1 and 2, or 1 and 3, if you skip 2, you get to bring two of the same storied regiment.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's cool and can be very powerful, but yeah, once again, it depends on having models, right?
It depends on having models, but also, more importantly, like, it opens up the doors to having two Throne of Alleganashes.
I was going to say, that's the thing that I would pick, which I don't think thematically makes sense, but is powerful and cool, because I like stompy things.
The lore for that is literally that it is the particular Drake that the first Hold Thane of Gadam tamed, and he got to keep it in death because he earned it in life. So it's like got his mummified corpse on it. So is there a second Allaganash mummy on a second Drake that he tamed?
Yes.
Is it his white? Like, you can make up things that are reasonable, like, oh, it's another powerful thing, but like if you stick to the actual lore of what these storied regiments are, which you're probably supposed to because it's a narrative campaign.
Yeah.
It stops making any sense. And then, like, if a player didn't win both 1 and 3, but whoever got defeated in Battle 3, their catch-up mechanic for the final battle is they get 80 points of character upgrades without spending any points. Which, okay, so you're Eric Schur. You have failed to defend the Toll House. So...
It feels like you won the ones that mattered, which was 1 and 4, and I won the 2 that set you up better for winning number 4. Because like winning 2 and 3 didn't really help me. But yeah, so which was weird. But
and now unless you want to talk about any more of the specific mechanics, I want to talk about the story itself.
No, so I think that makes sense. So I just like to wrap things up about the missions and the campaigns is we love the ones that take chances and have things expressed. We would like more variety than just standing in circle. And the consequences and the mission rules feel like they should be a little more tied to what the mission is and then the outcome of that. So going forward, we hope they do that. And like, once again, it's not that we hate First Blood, it's just that we like ranky flankies. But the First Blood mission won us over. I liked it a lot. It's probably the one that's most memorable. Yeah. So yeah, take chances. Those were cool.
Yep. So the actual like storyline here, I'm just going to talk about. This is a completely prescribed story. You are not as players changing anything or making any decisions yourself. Like, you do not play parts in this story. Who wins and who loses does not have any effect on the next mission outside of those mechanics. Yeah. But like, the most egregious example is in Mission 3, after you cross the bridge, or after Ragadosh crosses the bridge, there's a blurb about how he is now forced to make a choice. Now, this choice is
after Mission 2.
It's after Mission 2. It makes absolutely no reference to like what might have happened if his army got blown up crossing the bridge or not, or if he successfully defended it. It just says he is faced with making a choice: either take a fast way through a forest, or take a long way, which can keep his supply lines more protected because it doesn't have to go through the dangerous forest. Ragadosh makes that choice in the next sentence. Yeah. You as a player, I was reading it, I was like, oh, Brandon, who's playing Ragadosh, is going to make a choice. No. Ragadosh makes that choice. And is completely... It would make sense if it was like, if you won the mission, read this line, and because his forces were destroyed at the bridge, he is forced to make the choice to go through the forest, and then you can have a battle in the forest. That would make sense. It's the more dangerous route. But actually what happens is he makes it across. Not only does he choose to take the faster, more dangerous route, he also encounters the danger, like basically off screen, and then he arrives at the toll house with exactly the same forces that he would have if he didn't make that choice, basically. So, like, what...
And knitting this together, like, a good example of something that would be cool, both narrative-wise as well as rule-wise, is if the bridge is not destroyed, the Ragadosh and his forces can take a direct route there. They deploy normally with no negatives. If the bridge is destroyed, they have to make the choice of either taking the long route so they don't get reinforcements on the first turn of the next mission, or take the run through the woods, where if they run through the woods, maybe you could say the first 2 rounds, every time a unit comes on, you roll a d6 and they take some damage or something.
Or
to represent
something like that. They come onto the table broken.
That's a good example. So they lose 1 action. That's actually really good.
Right. Like there's things that you can do so you don't have to write 2 separate missions for like scenario 3. You can write missions with like branching special rules to take into effect like account like story points. I think the rest of the story is fine. Like we've talked about like the ludonarrative dissonance, but the ending of the campaign.
I think the thing that's weird about the ending of the campaign is
it's the same.
It's the same either or with minor consequences to the world. It feels like a sitcom, and what I mean by that is sitcoms need to end how they start so the next one can pick up. So if the Ragadosh wins, he kills the random faceless baron who has his sword. And if he loses, Eric Schur basically knocks him out in a duel, then notices that the random baron has a weapon that the Dwagam want, and then punches the baron and then returns the sword. So the stakes here are just... And once again, like having Eric be sympathetic to Dwag is, I actually think, a good story beat. But if we look at the consequence of this is, no matter what, Dwagam end up with the ancient weapon. And the person who lives or dies is a baron who is not named and not represented on the table.
I mean, he has a name, I think, but he's not represented on the table.
Correct.
And he has no interaction in the story. It's entirely Eric Schur's story. And to that point, it is entirely Eric Schur's story. Ragadosh is an NPC. You played the NPC force. Now, like, between him, like, making these decisions that you have no part in, and, like, the story ending with Eric Schur being the only character with any agency, no matter what.
No, I agree.
It feels like Ragadosh is an NPC force, which is disappointing. If you buy into this, you're like, oh, Stoneface campaign. It's got a Dwagam in it. They should be equally important.
Yeah, it should be the Eric Schur campaign. But and I'm fine with the fact that the mission that the ending that you come up with is not the canon. As part of this, you could vote on who wins. That's fine that one wins, but it would be good if the consequences could be a little more dire, right? And I'm going to actually relate it back to something that Parabellum does fantastically. The living story is fantastic. The amount of people who I know who play or got involved in playing because of Living Story, or who don't play but still vote because they like that they can influence, is a lot. And I think it's really cool that they put up some stakes that, granted, one week of voting is going to change everything, but like over the story beat, that you can end up in a very different place based on how you vote on things. And I think that's one of Parabellum's strengths, is the story. They can take some chances on things. And I think this could have been a story where maybe the 100 Kingdom end up with the special artifact forever, and that's going to permanently cause some sort of schism between Dwag and 100 Kingdom. They won't be able to trust each other, right? Because, like, taking it back, like, I think it's cool that in Reesmark that the Dwagam and the 100 Kingdoms formed an alliance through a lot of story beats, and then now there's some world
and the Wadroon.
That's what I meant to say.
Oh, sorry. Because I think the Dwagam and the 100 Kingdoms, I'm forgetting some of Reesmark. But I think the 100 Kingdoms fight off the Dwagam and then make an alliance against the Spires and Nords. Yeah. And then the Wadroon also show up and permanently live in Reesmark.
Correct.
Now.
That's what I mean.
Cool stuff.
I think it's very cool that based on interactions that players voted on, or participants, that the Wadroon settled and formed an alliance with 100 Kingdoms.
Yes.
I think that offers excellent modeling opportunities where you can take 100 Kingdom equipment and put it on the few models that have metal equipment in Wadroon. I think that's thematically cool. I think it creates like interesting system where these are they're working like they're typecast as like the savage units, the Wadroon, but these ones are working hand in hand with the civilized people. They have farmland. They have their right. I think there's a very cool evolution of the story. And I just feel like they could have done a little bit more evolving here. Like, I think there could have been higher stakes. Like, maybe Eric Schur is permanently injured, or Ragadosh loses an eye, and if we see him again, he has different stats or something, or the artifact is gone. I would have liked a little bit more stakes.
Yes. And speaking of stakes, that's a bad segue because I don't have anything to say. Let's conclude. Let's wrap up our thoughts. All right. Good first effort. I think.
I think it's good. I think
the $10 that you're paying over, it's $20 or so off. No, it's $10 off the cost of like normally buying 2 characters, and you get this pamphlet. And we've had a lot of negatives to say about the pamphlet, but that's not to say don't ever do this again. Just proofread.
Correct.
Please.
Yeah, I think
that's the number one thing that you can do to improve this and make me go, yes, this is worth $10 over just buying the characters individually, or 2 resin characters individually.
Yeah, if you made it this far, I just want to say a few things, which is you don't make a video for something you don't care about.
Yes.
We played this whole campaign.
This is going to be our sixth video about this. We care about it. I'm deeply invested in narrative in the Conquest world.
This is something that Isaac likes in games in general, and his critique in other major systems
comes
they
from
don't
my
do
heart.
enough with narrative. So when he sees something like this, it's a product line that he wants to see grow and flourish. And I think that this is a very great initial offering. I think they do a lot of things right. I think the characters are great. I think storied regiments are a thing they didn't mention. You should. Because it's cool.
Just do the build-up. It's 6 total storied regiments, right? So that's 6 weeks of content.
Yeah. Don't reveal the stats. Just say who they
are.
Don't
say the stats. Yeah. Literally, just say it's Sorcerer King's coming up. This is the elite Rajakor regiment named this. They fight with axes instead of scimitars. I don't actually know what Rajakor come with natively.
Yeah,
but like
or the fire. I forgot the name.
The goals.
The goals. And these goals have
blue fire.
Special magic where they glow blue. Like that's cool. Someone can buy and paint those ahead of time. That gives something unique to do. That gives you
give a little conversion guide. Like for this Rajakor example, I just made up out of nowhere. Like, show us, like, hey, you can use axes from the Nord's kit or like whatever other kit and give it to these guys. And now you have your cool personalized, not really personalized because it's based on like something else, but like you have the storied Rajakor ready to tell this epic story set in the world of Ea. I don't actually know how it's pronounced, but like that's cool. And it's community engagement. Like that's 6 weeks of like, if you post it on Fridays, people are going to come on Fridays and say, what's the storied regiment this week? Let's check out the storied regiment this week.
There's going to be people who are going to see it and they're going to build and paint it for next Friday.
Oh, yeah. I would do that. I would absolutely do that. If I had, especially for like, I'm saying that I would do that for probably many regiments if the lore is cool enough, even if I don't play the army. If you did that for Wadroon, which is my main army, I can guarantee you, I have enough extra kits that I have in my pile of shame where I could probably go out and do that the day of, and I probably would, regardless of lore, just to be like, look, I have, the wings of Quaddle.
Yes.
That's an actual like monster regiment, but like. Take a blooded kit and give it a hand weapon and a shield from the Braves kit and also the slinger feathers. And that's like an elite. It's a veteran unit with shield. I think veterans already have shield, but like you know what I mean. Like we can guess at what the rules are, but like it's also an awesome way to use extra bits. Like you have enough like dual kits and you can do things like that. And like even the more exotic ones, like the Raja Core with Nord axes or something, like people would do that. I would do that.
And I believe in the...
he has Nords. We can buy Sorcerer Kings and use his extra axes.
100%, yeah. I believe someone asked in one of the Hangouts if there was... someone mentioned or asked if there was going to be STLs for upgrade kits. And someone said that's something they've thought of or potentially in the future. Like, this is another good example is, you know, come up with an STL for heads, make people pay a few bucks for it, and then they can print it out or something. And I think that personalizes things and gets the hobby going. One of the last things I would like to say is to vote, you have to kind of register. And one thing that I think is really great about Conquest is you register and have an account. That account lets you use the army builder and save armies. You can vote, all sorts of great things. I don't want Parabellum to give things away for free because I want them to make money and stay in business so we can keep buying great models. It would be great if when you bought this product, there was a unique key that you could register to your account that would open up the profiles so you could use the army builder and print army list.
Yes.
The one thing that is hard is we build armies in spreadsheets and other things because we'd have to like do pencil math. So sometimes we weren't as precise with the building of armies. And the second thing is, and we probably could have went to Kinko's and got copies, but we were passing this back and forth a lot, and especially in the last mission where everyone had 3
storied
regiments, and then I think you were the one with double of some. And
I could have brought 2 River Wardens because they natively have a rule that you can bring 2 units
but
of
you
them.
didn't,
but I didn't because I was proxying them anyways.
That's
so,
fair. But it was a lot of passing back and forth to see things, and if we could have just put that in the app or put that in a printed list, I think that would have been helpful. And I think that is one of the things Parabellum does better than 40K and a lot of other games is their army builder is connected, saved, and it stays up to date. And I think that is just such a useful thing in today's day and age.
Yeah. All right. So that was the retrospective for the Stoneface Crucible of Wills, the Stoneface campaign. TM, TM, TM. Overall, I would say that we enjoyed it.
Yes.
Again, to reiterate, final conclusion, please proofread. There are some things that you can do to improve. The number one thing, proofread. The number 2 thing...
Get a small players of people outside to
play test.
I think the problem is a lot of these missions, people talk through how the missions should play, so they weren't actually going, okay...
It doesn't make
1,
sense
2,
at objective 3.
Three's over here, we got to change this, guys.
So,
I think that would help, and especially where it's a printed product, so people get something that they don't have to go ask for on the
I alluded to this. I want to go back to that. This is so many things are like basically unplayable or hard to play, and not even an announcement of an errata or FAQ or anything has been released. Like this,
correct. Like a good example is we're not the only people who notice in Mission 2 that the attack characteristics on the textually explicit First Blood units seemed off. Other people have asked about this. And we haven't seen any like official acknowledgement or FAQ or.
This is something that should definitely have been errataed like immediately. Like, does no one at PB is no one at Parabellum aware of these typos that change the game so much? I find that hard to believe. It would be nice if someone actually released a quick PDF that just said on page 13, update the River Wardens on the First Blood profile to have 2 wounds. That's all it takes. I understand it's a small company, but like this is many people's first look into the narrative potential of Parabellum Conquest. I know many people have probably just bought it just to have the models and have not looked at the missions or the units inside at all. I know many people have looked and don't plan to ever play anyways. But there are going to be groups of people like myself who are going to open this up, see that it looks low effort because of that.
Yeah.
And just be like, oh, so this company is not going to make products I'm interested in, and they're not going to buy the City States versus Sorcerer Kings one. They're not going to buy the future Nords versus Wadroon or whatever have you.
Yeah.
They're just going to give up at that point. And maybe if they even engage in Conquest anymore, they might only do tournament and just not care about narrative if they think that you're just shoveling crud out. So that's the final conclusion.
Yeah.
Hey, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
And hang out for more. And yeah, once again, we love narrative content. That's why we played it. We want the City State and Sorcerer one to be badass so that we can see future ones. So everything we say here is it's something good that
From
we
the
think
heart.
can be great. And we want that. So catch you on the next one. Thanks
See
for
you in the
sticking
next
around.
contest. See you in the next conquest. That's what I say. That's what I say now. So.